Hello and welcome to the presentation of AstroCamp 2025. My name is Carlos Martins. I'm the Scientific Director of the AstroCamp program, and together with Rita, who is currently in the program, we'll explain to you what the program is about and what you should do if you want to apply to it and join it. So the AstroCamp is an academic excellence program in the area of astronomy and physics, which is organized by us, the Center of Astrophysics of the University of Porto, in partnership with the Paredes de Cora municipality, and it's aimed at students in the last 3 years of pre-university education. The entry point in the program is always a summer school, and this year we'll have the 14th edition of this summer school, which will take place from the 10th to the 24th of August, 2025, at the Center for Environmental Education of the Corno do Bico Protected Landscape in Paredes de Cora municipality in Portugal. So what are our goals in setting up and running this program? Essentially, we want to promote high-level scientific knowledge for high school students. So we want to identify these students, people who have the talent and motivation and drive to be future leaders in the area of expertise they choose, which might be astronomy or physics or any other scientific area, and give them high-level academic training beyond what they normally get in their school classes, and stimulate a number of other skills which are important in science and in the modern world as a whole. Things like critical thinking, teamwork, group responsibility, and so on. Beyond that, we also want to provide the students with further opportunities in terms of networking, long-term support, which is important, especially for students which come from areas, small towns, for example, where these opportunities might not be easily available. So the program has a 3-year structure. So you always you join the program in the antepenultimate year of your school. So you apply, we'll explain why in a minute. And if you are successful, you join the program, you start the program with this 2-week summer school. And if you do well enough in this school, both in terms of your results in the exams and in demonstrating your maturity and your professional attitude towards learning, then you can continue in the program for the following 2 years, so until you finish secondary school and join university. Beyond that, you can still remain informally in the program and network with other people and so on. So after this summer school, if you stay on, you'll be given an individual mentor, which can guide you academically and more broadly, and you'll be able to join a number of other activities, either for you to do individually or for you to do as a group with other people who are also in the program. Some of these activities will be remote, but some of them will also be in-person activities. And as an example of one of these activities that we'll have next year in 2026, we are planning a scientific expedition to the total solar eclipse of August 12, 2026. And in this expedition, we'll be able to carry out a number of scientific experiments that you can only do during total solar eclipses. So if you stay in the program, you'll have the opportunity to join and contribute to these scientific experiments. Now, the program is a selective one. So if you want to join, you need to apply, and you go through an application process, which I'll describe in more detail a little bit later. Essentially, there are 2 phases. The first phase is you submit your application. The second phase is you might be called for an interview, which is always done in English, even for Portuguese students. One of the principles of the program is that if you are studying in a school in Portugal, then the school will have no costs for you. For students coming from other countries, this may or may not be the case. We may have some funding for you, either our own funding or from other sources. Again, I'll come to that point later. If everything else fails, it might be necessary for you or your parents, your family, to cover some of these costs. What kinds of things do we do in school? Well, you'll have 2 courses. So in each of the 2 weeks of the summer school, you'll have a course. Each course will have 21 hours of classes, 4 hours of written exams, spread all over the week. You'll have activities for you to develop your broad research skills. We have some practical projects, stargazing sessions, online chats with astronomers and physicists all over the world. We'll also watch some documentaries and other science-related movies. And more broadly, we have a number of other community service projects which change a little bit from year to year. There's a set of public talks that you can watch if you are in the camp, but which are also broadcast, so your family and friends can see them online on YouTube. And being up in the mountains, we do a lot of hiking, including one overnight hike to see the Perseids meteor shower. And we have a bunch of other recreational activities, which again, change a little bit from year to year. And also activities with former students of the program and with people who might be your future mentors if you stay on. Now, speaking of community service activities, let me take a couple of minutes to mention one of them, which is, I think, one of the nice contributions that we've had as a whole in these years. If you want to build a scale model of the solar system, it's easy to do one that is accurate in terms of distances but not sizes, or the other way around. To do one that is accurate both in terms of distances and sizes is a lot harder. As far as I know, there are only 16 of them which are accurate in Europe, and we, students of AstroCamp over the years, built one of them. So this was built in the first 4 editions, and in 2016, we inaugurated a hiking trail associated with the scale model. So now you can hike through the mountains and gradually come across the planets in the solar system in their appropriate positions. And this trail is now used in Portugal as a teaching resource for 7th grade students. So there's a whole new generation of Portuguese students who are learning their solar system basics using a facility that the AstroCamp students built. So I think that's something that is very, very nice. Now, let me give you a quick summary of the previous 13 editions. And it's essentially a statistical summary with the percentage of Portuguese and foreign students and boys and girls who participated in the various editions. So up to now, in the 13 editions, there have been 166 students participating, coming from Portugal and 15 other countries. And you see how these percentages varied through the years. In the first 4 years, we only accepted Portuguese students, so obviously there's no foreign students. Then the format changed, and now we accept applications from many countries, as we will see in a moment. And nowadays, we essentially have comparable numbers of Portuguese and foreign applicants. In terms of boys versus girls, typically more girls participate, or at least are selected to the camp than boys. This is a trend that is more or less stable over the years. Now, I should emphasize that there's no quotas for any of these numbers. There's no quotas for Portuguese or foreign students, no quotas for boys and girls, and so on. So whoever is selected is purely a function of the merit and potential and maturity of the people who apply. So that it's not imposed, it's whatever comes out. Okay, and that said, Rita will now tell you a little bit about last year's edition. So she'll describe what happened there and her impressions, and hopefully that will be useful for you to consider an application.
Hi everybody, my name is Rita Silva, and I'm a student from the 2024 edition. So I'm 16 years old and I'm currently in the 11th grade in the course of Science and Technology. And I go to Arga Lima School, which is located in the district of Viana do Castelo. So last year, I got to know this program through my school. I basically received an email promoting AstroCamp, and I thought it was interesting for me to apply. So basically, I applied individually, completely out of curiosity, and with the aim to know a bit more about physics and about the universe, which both keep me fascinated. So my future intention of following a career in the field of science also contributed for me to apply to the camp. Also, the concept of the camp that involves learning about the universe in 2 weeks surrounded by nature and all the activities that we had outside was really attractive to me. So my overall experience of the camp was really positive. I would say that it's not only allowed me to grow as a student, since I improved my studying methods, I learned a lot, and I also improved the dedication that I put into the work I'm doing, but it also allowed me to grow as a person. So some things I would highlight about the camp is that it provides us with a calm atmosphere around nature, with all the resources for us to study comfortably. The safe facilities are really clean and welcoming, as well as the sales staff, which was willing to help us with whatever we needed. Also, the boundaries created within the group also created this warm and family-gathering environment in which we all felt more eager to study and in which it was really nice to live for these 2 weeks. Also, the purpose of the camp is for us to learn as much as we can in these 2 weeks. And this can be quite demanding. So we learned a lot of stuff that we would never have the opportunity to learn at school. And we also learned much more complex physics and also much more interesting than the one that we'll be learning at school. So something that really marked me was the amount of things that we were able of learning in these 2 weeks. Also, the camp had a lot of activities that allowed us to relax a little bit and to create memories with the people we were with. Also, these break times were really important because they allowed us to discuss the topics we have been working in classes and to make questions and to try to get deeper into these subjects, and that was really nice. So overall, I would say that the camp was a challenging, demanding, and rewarding experience, and is the perfect place for people who want to find out more about the universe they are living in and to clarify any curiosity they might have. So personally, my favorite part of the camp was our second course, the Physics of the Universe course. In this course, we explored subjects like Einstein's special and general relativity, the physics of stars, the Big Bang, extra dimensions, among others. So I basically think that it is fascinating how we can theoretically understand all of this and the keys that this gives us to think of our universe. Still, I reinforce that this course was pretty demanding, but it is basically amazing how you can, with some work and dedication, to understand and keep up. Now talking about the activities, we made a lot of activities during the 2 weeks, but I would like to highlight some. Something I really enjoyed were the many hikes we made. Professor has already talked about the Solar System Trail, that is the longest one. It was an around 3 hours hike, and it was quite fun. Another one that I quite enjoyed was the River Beach hike. Basically, we went to a river beach and we had a nice time because we happened to caught a small concert that was given by the town of Dakota, and it was very fun. Then we had a lot of stargazing sessions. We had in one of them, we actually managed to have a telescope. It was very interesting. Basically, due to almost non-existent light pollution in the Corno-de-Bico protected landscape, we could have a pretty clear view of the sky, and we could track down constellations, planets, and see the Milky Way. Also, something that I found much helpful was the Meet and Astrophysics talks. In these, we had the opportunity to talk via Zoom with some researchers on the field, and we could ask them questions about their career, their studies, their work that they are developing, and this helped us to have a clear view of what it is to work in the field of cosmology, astrophysics, and how can we get there, and what can we do with a degree in physics or astrophysics. So last but not least, I would also like to highlight the games or documentaries nights. In these, we'd rather saw a documentary on an astrophysics or physics topic, or we played some kind of game that had always a cerebral stimulating compound. So this was quite fun because it allowed us to relax and at the same time we kept learning. So I would rather say it was some kind of informal and nice approach to the topics we've been working. And there were a lot of activities, so these are just some examples among others. So after the camp, basically when the 2 weeks passed, we all found out that they had gone really fast and we were all sorry that we had to leave. But after the camp, you can always keep in touch with the people you met there and bring these friendships to your life. You also get a lot of knowledge and a more clear vision of what is working and developing research in this field. Also, if you do well enough in the summer school and have good grades, you can be invited to stay in the project, and then you're going to develop a 2 years project. The project I'm doing right now has to do with rediscovering the expansion of the universe, and I'm working with real data. And this project also allows you to develop your programming skills, so it's really interesting. You also are going to have access to a mentorship project, and if you do well enough in the camp, you can also be invited and awarded with a co-op internship. So finally, some advice I would like to give you is not to be afraid not to be good enough or to give up in the first days because it is too hard. Because if you really are passionate about cosmology, physics, maths, or anything in this area, you will really like the camp, and in the end, it will be worth it. Also, read all the books that are suggested and do all the pre-camp studying preparation, because when you get there, you will be more into the topics of discussion, and it will be much more easy for you to keep up. Don't be afraid to ask any questions and to have a critical thinking about the topics that you'll be studying. The professor and the monitors are always willing to help with any questions you might have. Also, when you are doing the pre-reading, you can write down any questions you have, and then you try to clarify them at the camp. Any curiosities you have, it's really fun to discuss that. Also, about the exams, don't put much pressure into them. Don't get too stressed, because they are really demanding. There's a lot to catch up and not a lot of time to study. So basically, everybody is just trying to do the best they can, and anybody expects you to have the perfect grades. So just try to organize your schedule and to manage your time so that you have time to study a little bit, to do the tasks that will be asked during the camp, to sleep and to take care of yourself, and enjoy the experience that you will have. Basically, I would say that if you're a person that is curious and passionate about the universe we live in, AstroCamp is perfect for you, and enjoy this experience because it will be unique and it will open you many doors.
Thank you, Rita. So now that you know what the program is about, let me tell you how you can join it if you're so inclined. So first of all, some formal rules and requirements for you to apply. In order to apply this year, you need to fulfill simultaneously 2 conditions. So first, in the current academic year, you need to be matriculated in the antepenultimate year of pre-university education in any of the 45 countries that you see on the slide. And second, you must be a national citizen of one of these countries. So there's 35 countries in Europe, 6 in the Americas, and 4 in Asia and Oceania. So in Portugal, this means that you must be, in this academic year, matriculated in the 10th grade, and almost certainly this will mean that you were born in the year 2009. In other countries, which have slightly different school systems, what happens might be slightly different. The main rule is it should be the antepenultimate year. But if it's, in your particular case, not exactly clear whether or not you can apply, then feel free to contact us and ask. You'll see how you can contact us in a minute. So what is our plan for this year? So the dates of the school, I already mentioned, it's August 10 to 24th. We expect to have anywhere between 10 and 20 students starting the program. We'll have 2 to 3 teachers. All teachers are active researchers in astronomy or physics. And we'll have 4 to 6 camp monitors. Some of these monitors will be former students of the camp, so they know what the camp is about, they know how it works, they know the kinds of difficulties that students typically have. So they are ideally placed to help you in your stay there. Now, regarding funding, as I said, for students studying in Portugal, the camp will have no costs for you. If you come from other countries, then there's still some funding available. We'll have some of our own, but we also have an agreement with ESO, the European Southern Observatory, and they'll award a prize to one student coming from an ESO member country. So this prize covers the cost in the camp. It doesn't cover the travel to the camp. I'll come to that point in a second. Astronomiska Ungdom in Sweden also has an agreement to fund one member of the organization. So there's no guarantee here. There's no quota for a student from Sweden. The agreement is if someone from Sweden applies and is selected and is a member of this organization, then they will fund your participation. And in this case, this means both the camp expenses and the travel to the camp. We also have a few other informal agreements with various agencies from other countries. And if students from these countries are selected, we can put you in contact with these organizations and they may consider covering your costs. Here, there is no formal agreement. It's decided on a case-by-case basis, but it is a possibility. In addition to the main activities that you heard already, both from me and from Rita, there are several other things to keep in mind. One of the principles of the program is that students play a role in selecting the courses that you'll have in these 2 weeks. So we'll have a list of possible courses that researchers can propose to us. So we make a first selection. And then just before the students are interviewed, they will be sent a list of possible courses and they're asked to vote, so to rank the courses they would prefer to have in order of preference. And then we take that information into consideration when deciding which courses are actually offered and will take place in the camp. So the decision is not only yours, but you will play a part in deciding and you can express your opinion. Now, one thing that Rita already mentioned, and which I want to stress, is that although these 2 weeks are only in August, there will be preparation activities in July. So you'll be given books to read and other things to do. What exactly this is will depend on the courses that we'll have, because they are preparation for the courses mostly. And it's important that you do take some time in July to prepare for the camp in August, because otherwise, when you get there, you'll be at a disadvantage with respect to other students who did do their preparation. So this doesn't take that much time. It might take a few days spread all over the month, which you can organize as you want, depending on your schedule. But it is important that you plan to take this time if you are really interested in participating. There's a cycle of public talks, which I mentioned already. These will be webcast. And there's also activities with former students of the camp, including an alumni weekend, so where former students of the camp can come, stay there for a few days and interact with the students. Now, at the bottom of this slide, you can see some of the courses we had in previous years in the camp. You can see there's a big range. Some courses are broader, some are more specific. This depends on the offers we have, and then it also depends on the preferences of the candidates each year. Okay, so how do you apply? So the applications are always done online at the AstroCamp website, and they're always during the month of April, so from April 1st to the 30th. I already mentioned the eligibility rules. You must be in the antepenultimate year of your pre-university education in one of the 45 countries on the previous slide. You must be a national of one of these countries. And all students are selected this way with one exception. Since the Paredes de Cora municipality is a partner of the organization, the local secondary school can nominate one student to participate in the camp. So this student still needs to send an application, and the same deadline and the same rules apply to this student as for any other student. The only difference is that this student will not be interviewed. So as long as the application is valid, that candidate will be accepted automatically. What does the application contain? So you need first one motivation letter written by you in English, explaining who you are, what are your reasons for applying to the camp, what you hope to gain from the camp, and so on. You need a letter of recommendation from your current physics teacher. And let me emphasize the 3 words. It must be your current physics teacher. Nobody else can write the letter. This letter can be written in Portuguese or English. You'll need a certificate from your school with your current grades, so the latest certificate you have. In Portugal, this will be the second term grades, so the grades that you get around Easter. In other countries, this might be slightly different. So maybe you don't get a certificate at Easter, maybe you get it at Carnival, or maybe you can just ask directly your school for a certificate provided on the spot and with your latest grades. Finally, you also need an authorization from your parents. And so this is signed by your parents. A scanned version of it is uploaded with your application, but simultaneously you need to send the original, so the paper version, by post, and it's essential that it reaches us by the 15th of May. So the scan is only temporary. We do need the original. So finally, and optionally, you can also include in your application certificates of participation in relevant scientific activities, things like maths Olympiads, physics Olympiads, astronomy Olympiads, and so on. Now, one very important point, so you upload all these documents in your application with one exception. You do not upload the letter of recommendation from your teacher. What you do is you provide in the application form the name and the email of the teacher that will write your letter. And at the moment you submit your application, the teacher will get in the email you provided a message with instructions for how to upload the letter. Now, I'm emphasizing this because the April 30 deadline also applies to the teacher recommendation letter. So if you send your application before or on April 30, but your teacher doesn't, then your application is not valid. So make sure you understand and that your teacher understands that the April 30 deadline is for a complete application, including letter of recommendation. Okay, so that's the first stage of the application. We look at all the applications, we make a short list, and we invite some people for interviews. And these interviews will be either in person at the Center of Astrophysics in Porto on May 24th, or in Lisbon in the Pavilion of Knowledge on May 25, or via Zoom. So if you're not in Portugal, clearly you'll be interviewed via Zoom. If you are in Portugal, you can choose whether to come to Porto or Lisbon or to be interviewed via Zoom. That's your choice, and you're not advantaged or disadvantaged by choosing one or the other. Okay, now let's assume that you are successful. After the interview, again, we make a final selection. And if you have a place, you'll receive an offer of a place on or before the 1st of June. And if you get that offer, you must confirm that you accepted by the 5th of June. And by confirming, I don't simply mean replying to the email, say, yes, I will come. This also involves signing some additional documents, both by you and by your parents. So it's important that this is completed by the 5th of June, because we need some time to do some bureaucracy on our side. So if you don't confirm sufficiently fast, we may withdraw the offer of your place and offer that place to some other student. Okay, some other logistics rules. All the students must stay in the camp, so at throughout the entire event, so throughout the entire 2 weeks, and participate in all activities. It's not possible in any circumstances to participate only in part of the camp, unless you decide to drop out and leave. So everyone must arrive at the appointed time, and everyone will leave at the appointed time. And specifically, everyone must arrive at the meeting point, which is the train and bus station in Viana do Castelo, by 4 p.m. on August 10, and you'll return to that meeting point by 12 noon on August 24. If you are flying into Porto, someone from the organization, either a teacher or a camp monitor, will be waiting for you at the airport on Sunday morning and accompany you from the airport to the meeting point and from the meeting point to the camp. Now, for those of you in Portugal, you have two options when it comes to traveling to the meeting point. You might want to do it by public transport, by bus or by train. And in that case, we'll refund those travel expenses. as long as you get receipts containing the CAUP name and tax number. This only applies to you, not to people who accompany you to the meeting point if they want, but you can refund your costs. Alternatively, you can have your parents drive you to the meeting point in Viana do Castelo, and in that case, we cannot cover that expense. It's more convenient, possibly, but we cannot cover that. We cannot cover flights of foreign students, but we'll cover the travel from Porto Airport to the meeting point and vice versa. So essentially, your expenses within Portugal are covered by us, but arriving in Porto and leaving from Porto are not covered. Now, as I said, we have some funding for foreign students. There's the ISO prize and so on. If there's no other source of funding, and if you cannot find funding from your local sources, from your school or municipality, the maximum expense, so the maximum cost that foreign students may have to pay will be 400 euro. And if that's the case, you or your family will need to pay it by June 30. If you are offered a place, and if it's helpful, we're happy to write a letter saying you've been offered a place and the cost of participation is so much, and possibly you can use that letter to try and find funds locally. One other thing I want to emphasize, any messages from us, so any time we contact you, either to invite you for an interview or to offer you a place, the email will come from the camp email, which is astrocamp@astro.up.pt. Sometimes, not very often, but sometimes it happens that those emails end up in the spam folder. So try to make sure that messages from this email are flagged as safe and that they don't end up in your spam folder, because you might miss a message to which you have to reply very quickly. Okay, so what should you expect in the camp? So you should expect 2 weeks with no other commitments. You will not have internet, you will not have access to mobile phones. So the idea is to isolate you for 2 weeks and do our best so that you can learn as much as you can. So we'll have each week 21 hours of classes, 4 hours of written exams. So you should expect to work harder than you do at school, but the payoff is that you'll learn a lot more than you do if you were in school. Rita has already mentioned this. We try to give you the best possible environment in which you learn. So it's a quiet place up in the mountains. There's no city stress. There is no light pollution. You can just focus on learning and discussing physics and astronomy and science with people who, like you, are passionate about it. You'll have courses on your favorite topics. You'll play a role in choosing these topics. So in principle, you'll have courses on things you really like. And more broadly, this is a place for you to learn how science is actually done and to interact with people who are doing it these days, and to decide if this is really what you want to do in the future. And it's also a starting point for that future. So it's a way for you to start building your future in science, both in the 2 years after it, in which we'll accompany you more closely, and beyond that when you go to university and so on. Okay, Rita has already given you some advice. Let me also give you some advice on my side. First, on this slide, I have some advice for the teachers writing the motivation letters. So first of all, I already mentioned this, the April 30 deadline also applies to you. So make sure if you're asked to provide a letter, presumably the student will talk to you before you receive the email asking for the letter, but be sure to send the letter by the deadline, because otherwise the application is not valid. In the email you receive asking for the letter, there will be some instructions on how to write the letter, some suggestions from us, from previous experience, on how to write a letter that is helpful for the student. So do read these instructions, and even if you wrote the draft before receiving the email, think of those instructions and think whether you want to revise the letter a little bit before sending it. If you write the letter in 3 minutes and send it immediately, almost certainly you're not helping the student. So do take some time in writing a letter that is useful. It's also important to keep in mind that the only valid way for you to send the letter is to upload it in the link that you receive. So if you send it by email or by any other method, that is not valid. We will not even look at it, which means, again, that the application will not be considered. As I said, you can write the letter in Portuguese or in English. If you're not fluent in either language, you have a plan B, which is you write it in a letter in which you are familiar, and then you ask an English teacher in the school where you teach to translate the letter for you. But then the letter should say, I am the student's physics teacher. I've written the letter, and my English colleague, Mr. So-and-so, has translated it into English. And then both of you, so the physics teacher and the English teacher, sign the letter. And then the physics teacher uploads it using the provided link. So this is fine, you can do it. What you cannot do is give the letter to the student, so to the candidate, and ask the student to translate it. So this is not allowed. The information you provide in the letter is confidential. And one reason for this is that we ask that you are honest and specific. So we really want to know more about the student than we can see from the grades or motivation letter and so on. What this means is that if you write a letter that is vague or generic, that is not helping the student. You should really describe the student in as much detail as you know him or her, because that's how you help the student, and that's how you can make a difference between that student and many other candidates you have. So don't write a generic letter. If you do that, you're not helping the student. Now, one question we also get quite frequently is, what if more than one student asks you for a letter? So maybe you have 2 students in your class who want to participate, or you're teaching 2 or 3 different classes in your school, and the students in all of these classes want to apply. That is perfectly fine. You can write letters for more than one student. That's not a problem at all. Just remember what I said a minute ago. You should be specific about each student. So what this means is, if you send the same letter for more than one student, just changing trivial details here and there, in that case, we'll automatically exclude students with duplicated letters. It doesn't matter which letter comes first and which letter comes later. If we find 2 identical letters or almost identical letters, those candidates are excluded. So just don't do that. Okay, now I have some advice for the candidates themselves. So first, make sure that your teacher watches this video. In particular, make your teacher aware of the previous slide, and make sure that both the teacher and you, of course, know what the program is about, what is expected, and in particular, how you apply and when and so on. It should be obvious from what we said already that the summer school is not a holiday. I know it's in the middle of August, but it's not a holiday. And if you're hoping for a holiday, I guarantee you'll be disappointed. The April 30 deadline is 100% strict. There is no exceptions. We can never accept anything arriving later than this. So even if you only send your application in the last few days, which I don't recommend, but which you can do, start preparing it earlier. Start thinking of your motivation letter, contact your teacher earlier, let your teacher know that a letter is expected by this deadline, and so on. We also get lots of questions regarding grades. Grades are certainly relevant, but they're not everything. That's one reason why we have an interview. And just to give you an illustration which applies to the Portuguese system of grades, we've had students being selected with a grade of 14 out of 20. We've had students not being selected with a grade of 20 out of 20. So grades are an indication of some things, but they're not everything. So if you think this program is for you, and you think it's really what you need at this stage, and you definitely want to do it, then apply. Regarding the motivation letter, a motivation letter is what the name says. It's not an essay, it's not a place for creative writing, it's just a letter. That said, there is no recommended length. You can write 1 page, you can write 3 pages. Just write whatever you think is relevant and whatever you think it's important for us to know about you. But each person is different, and therefore each letter is different. There's no rules on length and so on. Again, be honest and specific. Don't write a vague motivation letter. That will not help you at all. You are, of course, responsible for anything you say in the application, and in particular the motivation letter. So, for example, if you say in the letter that you are really experienced in programming with Python, we may ask you in the interview to prove that this is the case. So whatever you say in the letter or your application, you're responsible for it. Regarding the optional documents, again, as the name says, they are optional. We don't need to know everything you did since kindergarten, but if you did things recently that are directly relevant to the program and that show that you have already some experience and some interest in the field, then do include them. But they are optional, and lots of people have been selected which had no such previous experience, either because they discovered astronomy or physics recently, or because they come from a small place where there's very few opportunities for students to do such activities and so on. So this is not a problem at all. And as I said already, if there's any doubt on whether or not you should include something, again, contact us by email. So finally, let me just summarize the timeline. So the applications period is in April, the entire month, so from the 1st to the 30th. The application is done on the AstroCamp website, which we have at the bottom of the slide. If you are selected for an interview, you receive an invitation by the 15th of May. If you are not contacted by us by that date, it means your application is not moving forward. We don't have the human resources to contact all the students and give feedback to all the students. So unfortunately, if you're not contacted, it just means you will not be interviewed. So the interviews will be on the weekend of May 24 and 25. 24th, if it's in Porto, 25th, if it's in Lisbon. Via Zoom, they can be on either day. So obviously, try to keep that weekend free. So when we invite you for an interview, we'll give you a specific day and time. If you are in Portugal, we'll by default ask you to come to Porto or Lisbon, but you can always say, no, I prefer to be interviewed via Zoom, and that's perfectly fine. Regarding the time, if the time that we offer to you is completely impossible for you, we can try to shift you to another time by swapping you with someone else, but we cannot guarantee that this is possible. We'll have 30-something interviews that weekend, so we'll have a very packed weekend, and rearranging things might not be possible. So do your best to keep that weekend free. If the time we propose to you is really impossible and you have good reason to change it, tell us and we'll do our best to swap you with someone else. But again, we cannot make 100% commitment that this is possible. If you are offered a place, you received an email with that offer by the 1st of June. You'll have 4 days to confirm it and complete the relevant paperwork. If there's any payments to be done, they should be done by the end of June. And if you find, in the meantime, support from some local source, that source can make the payment directly to us. So we have less bureaucracy. This also applies to the ISO price, for example. ISO will pay that amount directly to us. So you don't need to do anything. The school is from the 10th to the 24th of August, as I said. And if you are offered the possibility to continue in the program, you should confirm that you want to stay by the end of September. And again, at the bottom of the slide, you have the website where all of this information, and the camp regulations and various other things can be found. Finally, here's again the program email, which is also the camp email. And if you have any questions, feel free to contact us via this email. From this point onwards, the email will be read regularly. And during the applications period, the email will be read every day, including Saturdays and Sundays. So in principle, whenever you contact us, we should be able to reply to you within 24 hours at most. Okay, so that's what we had to say to you at this point. I hope this encourages many of you to apply. Do take some time and prepare the application carefully. Good luck with it, and I hope to see many of you at the interviews.